Hi, my name is Vanessa, and I'm 32 years old. For my entire adult life, I've poured every ounce of my being into building what I genuinely believed was our family's dream. Scratch that, let's be honest, it was my dream. A luxury villa nestled perfectly in California's serene wine country. Every single tile, every single fixture was hand-picked by me. Every corner, every beam, every window of that house was a symbol of my hard-won success, a physical manifestation of years of relentless effort and sacrifice. It was my sanctuary, my pride, my greatest accomplishment outside of my personal growth. And then, just 6 short months before my sister's wedding, this dream house, my dream house, became the subject of a nightmare I never could have imagined. My own sister, the person I shared a childhood with, the person I loved and protected for years, claimed it as her wedding present. Not partially, not for some photos, but outright. It's mine now. And the kicker? She did this without so much as a single conversation with me, without asking, without even a flicker of consideration for how I might feel. Have you ever experienced anything like that? Has someone you love, someone you've poured your heart and soul into, ever betrayed you in such a profound way? It's a gut punch, isn't it? A feeling that makes your stomach drop and your head spin, trying to reconcile the person you thought you knew with the person standing in front of you. I'd love to hear if you've had similar experiences, or even if you can just empathize with this kind of raw, unexpected hurt. Tell me in the comments below, because honestly, sometimes knowing you're not alone in these struggles makes all the difference. You know, for years, I was the one who held things together. After our dad passed away, it was me who stepped up, me who navigated the tricky waters of grief and responsibility, me who tried to provide stability for our family. I thought that by building this home, by achieving this level of success, I was securing a future, a legacy even, for all of us. But what I discovered was that some people only see what they can take, not what has been given, or what's been built with blood, sweat, and tears. This story isn't just about a house. It's about boundaries, about family dynamics, about entitlement, and about finding the strength to protect what's yours when the people you trusted the most turn against you. It's a journey filled with disbelief, anger, a deep sense of betrayal, and ultimately a profound realization about self-worth and independence. Before we dive into the nitty-gritty details of how this all went down, and trust me, it's a wild ride with twists and turns you absolutely won't see coming, do me a huge favor. Hit that like button. Seriously, it helps this story reach more people who might need to hear it, or who might even resonate with it on a personal level. And definitely subscribe to my channel. You absolutely won't believe how this story ends. Stick around, because this is just the beginning. Getting to the point where I could even think about building that villa wasn't overnight. It took 5 grueling years, 5 years straight, of working overtime, weekends, holidays, you name it, I worked it. Every single cent I earned, I meticulously saved. It wasn't about fancy cars or designer clothes. It was about a goal, a vision that felt incredibly distant sometimes, but was my North Star. Finding the perfect piece of land was the first step, and when I finally closed on that stunning plot in Sonoma, surrounded by rolling hills and vineyards, it felt like the culmination of so much effort. It was more than just land. It was the canvas for my dream. Hiring Derek, my best friend since college, as my contractor was a no-brainer. He's one of the most grounded, loyal people I know, and his sarcastic wit is the perfect antidote to my sometimes overthinking nature. Plus, he's incredibly talented. Working with him was a true partnership. We'd spend hours poring over blueprints, discussing everything from structural supports to the perfect shade of paint. He understood that this wasn't just a construction project for me. It was something deeply personal. He saw how much of myself I was pouring into it, and he respected that. The villa wasn't just a house. It was tangible proof that I could create something permanent, something beautiful, something that was entirely mine. After Dad passed, I took on so much responsibility, putting everyone else's needs ahead of my own. This villa was my way of saying, I did this. I built this dream from the ground up. Every beam placed, every wall raised felt like a mini victory. It was a sanctuary I was building, a place where I could finally just be. The construction process itself took 2 years. 2 years of navigating permits, overseeing deliveries, troubleshooting unexpected issues, and making countless decisions. 2 years of weekends spent on site, dirty but buzzing with excitement. It was hard work, physically and emotionally draining at times. But every single challenge overcome, every detail perfected, fueled my passion. I remember the first time I walked through the framing and could actually visualize the rooms, the light streaming in the windows. It was magical. Throughout those 2 years, the villa became my escape, my focus. It was where I channeled all my energy and creativity. It's funny though, looking back now. My sister, Rachel, never once visited the site during the entire 2-year building process. Not once. I'd send her progress photos, excitedly sharing updates, but she'd usually just give them a cursory like and a brief comment, always shifting the conversation back to whatever was going on in her life. At the time, I didn't think much of it. Rachel was living her own life in the city, caught up in her social scene. She wasn't really the type to get excited about concrete foundations or plumbing rough-ins anyway. She's more about the finished product, the glamorous reveal. I just assumed she wasn't interested in the messy, unglamorous part of building. But maybe, just maybe, that lack of interest during the creation phase should have been a sign that she didn't appreciate the effort, the sacrifice, the heart that went into making it a reality. It almost feels naive now, thinking about how eagerly I shared my dream with my family, believing they'd be just as thrilled for me as I was building this beautiful future. I was so lost in the creation process, so focused on the tangible structure rising from the ground, that I completely missed the subtle shifts happening around me. I was so busy building, I didn't see the cracks forming in the foundation of my family relationships until it was almost too late. And that, as you'll soon find out, led me straight into the next chapter of this unbelievable story. The villa was finally finished, standing proud and gleaming in the Sonoma sun. It was everything I had envisioned and more. For a few glorious months, I reveled in its beauty, feeling a deep sense of peace and accomplishment every time I drove up the winding driveway. It was quiet, serene, and truly felt like my ultimate reward. Then the calm was shattered. Rachel, my sister, who had been living out of state for over a year, decided it was time to make her grand re-entry into our lives. She was engaged to Travis, a man I hadn't really gotten to know, and the whirlwind of wedding planning was about to descend upon us. Rachel, always a magnet for attention, brought with her an undeniable energy. Her return was punctuated by a flurry of social media updates, a constant stream of perfectly curated Instagram stories, and a general air of glamorous entitlement that I had almost forgotten about. I truly tried to be welcoming. Despite her previous disinterest in the villa's creation, I was still her big sister, and she was getting married. I genuinely wanted to be happy for her. So I welcomed her with open arms, ready to dive into sisterly wedding preparations. We had a lovely dinner at my place, reminiscing about childhood, and for a moment, it felt like the old days. But then the conversation took a turn. We were sitting on the villa's expansive patio, the setting sun casting golden light over the vineyards, a picture-perfect scene. Rachel, swirling her wine, gazed out at the view. "You know, Vanessa," she began, her voice a little too casual, a little too saccharine. "This villa is going to look absolutely amazing in our wedding photos." I smiled, thinking she was just complimenting my taste. "Thanks, Rach. I worked hard on it." Then, she added, her eyes gleaming with what I now recognize as a calculated gleam, "It's perfect for a reception, isn't it? All this space, the views. I mean perfect." A tiny prickle of unease ran down my spine. "For your reception?" I asked, trying to keep my voice light, but a note of caution had already crept in. "Oh, right, I do. It's big enough, but I hadn't really thought about hosting a wedding here." She just laughed, a sound that grated on my nerves even then. "Of course, for my reception." What else? I brushed it off. Maybe she was just fantasizing, caught up in the excitement of wedding planning. I told myself I was overreacting. She wouldn't just assume something like that, right? Not my own sister. Surely she'd ask. But then the conversations with Mom started. Elaine, bless her heart, has always leaned towards Rachel, especially after Dad passed. It was subtle, usually manifesting in a quiet understanding, a tendency to smooth things over for Rachel. And now she began dropping hints, not about a wedding at the villa, but about the wedding. "Vanessa, dear," she'd say, her voice laced with what she thought was gentle persuasion. "It's so wonderful, isn't it? This beautiful home you've built, a true family treasure. And then the kicker. It just feels right, passing on such a magnificent property, a symbol of generational wealth and love, at a wedding. It has such wonderful symbolism." I'd politely correct her. "Mom, it's not being passed on. It's my home. I built it." But she'd just wave her hand dismissively, her eyes hinting at some grand, unspoken plan. "Yes, yes, of course, your hard work, dear. We all know that. But imagine Rachel starting her new life with this beautiful backdrop, this family legacy." The way she spoke, the way Rachel had looked at the villa, it wasn't just a comment or a suggestion anymore. It was an expectation, a foregone conclusion in their minds. The prickle of unease started to spread, morphing into a cold, uncomfortable certainty. They were talking about my villa, my dream, as if it was already decided. And I, the actual owner, was apparently the last to know about this generational symbolism. It became clear that Rachel wasn't just back in town. The Golden Sister had returned, not just to plan a wedding, but to claim her perceived inheritance without having lifted a single finger to earn it. And my mother, ever the peacekeeper, was apparently orchestrating the whole charade. I just didn't realize how far they'd already gone with their plans. That realization hit me like a ton of bricks, leaving me utterly speechless and completely blindsided, as you'll hear in the next chapter. The initial prickle of unease, that cold certainty, escalated into absolute shock when the wedding invitations started arriving. Not just for me, but for my friends, our relatives, everyone. And there, emblazoned across elegant cardstock, below a beautifully rendered crest of Rachel and Travis's initials, was the venue, my villa, my address, my dream home. I remember my hands shaking as I held the invite. My first thought wasn't anger, it was confusion. How could this be? Had I misheard Rachel? Had Mom misspoken? Did they really believe this was okay? Was this some elaborate, misguided joke? The humiliation came swiftly after the confusion. My friends, seeing these invitations, started texting me, calling me. "Vanessa, is this real? Your beautiful place? No way, that's so generous of you." Generous? I had given no such permission. I immediately called Rachel, my voice trying to remain calm, but an icy tremor was undeniable. "Rachel, what is this? These invitations, what do they mean?" Her response was so flippant, it stunned me into silence for a moment. "Oh, hey, Ness. Yeah, aren't they gorgeous? Travis had them custom made. The villa looks amazing on them, right?" "Rachel," I practically hissed, clutching the phone tightly. "You can't just put my private residence on a wedding invitation as the venue without asking me. This is my home." And that's when the true scale of their deception and my mother's complicity unfolded. Rachel sighed as if I was the one being difficult. "Vanessa, don't be dramatic. Mom said it was fine. We talked about it. It's perfect. It's going to be my wedding gift from the family." Gift? My mind reeled. Gift? From whom? From my hard work, my savings, my blood, sweat, and blueprints? How could something I built, something so deeply personal, so painstakingly crafted, be considered a gift from anyone else, let alone the family? What family? The one that watched me work myself to the bone while they offered zero assistance, zero financial support, zero emotional encouragement during the grueling process of building it? I hung up on Rachel and immediately called my mother. I was shaking with a mix of fury and disbelief. "Mom, Rachel just told me the villa is her wedding gift. What is going on?" My mother's voice, usually so calm and soothing, took on that subtly manipulative tone she reserves for difficult conversations. "Vanessa, dear, don't upset yourself. It's all settled. We talked about it. It's truly the perfect arrangement." "Perfect arrangement for whom, Mom?" Not for me. I never agreed to this. This is my house. And then came the guilt trip, a classic Elaine Moore maneuver designed to make me feel selfish, uncharitable, and fundamentally wrong for asserting my own boundaries. Vanessa, you're so successful, dear. You have everything. Rachel, she's just starting out. She needs a head start, a helping hand. This beautiful home would be such a blessing for them. Think of the stability it would provide. Stability? Mom, I bought the land, paid for every nail, every window, every single thing. I literally built this from the ground up. How is that a gift from anyone else? How is that giving Rachel a head start? I felt my voice rising, my frustration bubbling to the surface. You and Rachel just decided to give away my property without even asking me? How is that acceptable? It's not giving it away, darling, it's sharing, she cooed, her tone dismissive of my rightful anger. You have so much. This is about family, about supporting your sister. It's what our family does. That last line hit me hard. What our family does. My jaw clenched. This was the same family dynamic that always had me sacrificing, always put Rachel's needs above my own. Rachel, the glamorous, attention-seeking younger sister who had always coasted through life, benefiting from others' generosity and hard work. And me, the responsible, independent older sister, always expected to provide, to smooth things over, to be the steady anchor. The conversation went in circles, a maddening dance between my legitimate outrage and their well-practiced deflection and guilt. They had clearly conspired, Rachel and my mother, to present this as a done deal, hoping I would simply capitulate because it's family, and because, according to their warped logic, I already had everything. It was a profound moment of realization for me. The toxic family dynamic, the subtle favoritism toward Rachel, the unspoken expectation that I would always be the giver, while she would always be the receiver, it all coalesced into a sharp, painful clarity. This wasn't just about a house anymore. This was about finally drawing a line, about recognizing that my generosity had been mistaken for weakness, and my hard work had been conflated with an endless wellspring of resources for others to tap into. They weren't asking. They were taking, and they were counting on my guilt to let them get away with it. This was the moment I knew with absolute certainty that things had to change after the initial shock and the utterly maddening conversations with Rachel and my mother. I was left reeling. The audacity of it all was overwhelming. My frustration quickly turned into a cold, hard resolve. I wasn't just angry. I felt violated. My personal space, my hard-earned accomplishment, was being treated like a communal asset. Derek, sensing my distress, was the first one to truly cut through the noise. He came over, saw the stack of designer invites on my coffee table, and just shook his head. Ness, this is insane. You need to lock this down, legally, right now. His words, blunt as they were, started to clear the fog. He was right. But a part of me, the part that still clung to the idealized vision of family, was resistant. It shouldn't have to come to this, Derek, I said, my voice barely a whisper. This is my family. My sister, my mother. Why would I need legal protection from them? He just looked at me, his eyes full of sympathy, but also a firm understanding of reality, because they clearly don't see it the way you do, Vanessa. They're walking all over you, and if you don't put up a wall, they'll just keep going. His words forced me to confront a pattern that had been woven into the fabric of my life for years. From a young age, especially after Dad passed, I'd always been the responsible one. The big sister who stepped up, the second parent in many ways. I'd sacrificed my own desires, my own needs, to ensure everyone else was taken care of, especially Rachel. She was younger, more vivacious, and always seemed to need cushioning from the harsh realities of life. I was always there, providing that cushion. That ingrained habit of putting others first, of constantly being the provider and the problem solver, had fostered a deep-seated guilt within me, a guilt that whispered, "You have so much. Why can't you just give this one thing?" It was a powerful, insidious voice, born from years of conditioning, but this time, the betrayal felt too sharp, too personal. It wasn't just about money, or even property. It was about respect, about my autonomy. about the sheer audacity of believing they were entitled to something I had painstakingly built from nothing. That feeling of violation started to sour the guilt. It was like a switch flipped suddenly. The idea of sacrificing this, my sanctuary, my achievement, felt like an act of self-destruction. I thought about the years of saving, the meticulous planning, the physical exhaustion, the moments of doubt. I'd pushed through all of it, just so it could be casually gifted to someone who hadn't lifted a finger, someone who hadn't even bothered to visit during its creation. No, this was different. This was my line in the sand. I realized I couldn't afford to be naive anymore, family or not. This was a question of my fundamental right to my own property and my own boundaries. It was a crossroads. I could let this continue, allow myself to be guilt-tripped into losing my home, and with it, a piece of my self-respect, or I could fight. So I reached out to a trusted lawyer friend, someone who understood the complexities of family dynamics and property law. I explained the situation, the invitations, the conversations with my mother. She listened patiently, without judgment, and then gave me clear, actionable advice. We began the process of quietly adding security to the property, solidifying my ownership, establishing trusts and legal protections that would make it unequivocally clear who the owner was and who was not. I didn't tell Rachel or my mother what I was doing. Not yet. A part of me, however small, still hoped that a direct, honest confrontation could yield a better outcome. I still wanted to believe that they would see reason, that they would understand the gravity of their actions, and that we could somehow salvage our relationship without resorting to legal battles. I wanted to give them one last chance to do the right thing, but I wouldn't be going into that conversation unarmed again. I was building my legal fortress, preparing for the battle I now knew was likely inevitable, but praying I wouldn't have to unleash its full force. The next steps would be crucial, and I was determined to face them head-on. Despite everything, despite the growing anger and the quiet legal preparations, I still held on to a sliver of hope for peace. I still believed that if I offered an olive branch, perhaps reason might prevail. So, when my mother suggested that I host Rachel's rehearsal dinner at the villa as a supposed peace offering, I grudgingly agreed. I reasoned that it was a good opportunity to have all the key players, Rachel, Travis, my mother, and indeed Aunt Layla, who had recently arrived, in one place. Maybe, just maybe, with everyone present, the absurdity of the situation would become apparent to them. I painstakingly prepared for the dinner, arranging caterers and decorations, trying to make it pleasant, almost normal. Derek was there, bless his loyal heart, pretending to be utterly absorbed in some minor detail of the landscaping, but I knew he was watching, a silent guardian. The evening started. All right. A little tense, perhaps, but manageable. Guests arrived, complimenting the villa, and for a short while I could pretend that this was just a normal family event. But then came the speeches. Travis went first, a charming but slightly bland thank you to everyone for coming. And then it was Rachel's turn. She stood up, resplendent in a designer dress, a dazzling smile on her face. Her eyes swept across the room, lingering just a second too long on me before she began her practice speech. I just want to thank everyone for being here tonight, she started, her voice angelic, almost saccharine. And most especially, I want to thank my incredible big sister Vanessa. A polite ripple of applause, mostly from my side of the family. I gave a tight, polite smile, bracing myself. Vanessa, Rachel continued, her voice swelling with what seemed like manufactured emotion, you have always been there for me. And now you've given Travis and me the most extraordinary dream gift we could ever imagine. She paused, her eyes gleaming, and then, completely disregarding my presence in my own home, she finished with a flourish, this beautiful villa. It's a dream come true, a dream I always knew would be ours. And then it happened. Guests, mostly Travis's side of the family and Rachel's friends, who had absolutely no idea of the true situation, began to clap. A few of them even started to cheer, a murmur of how generous and what an amazing sister, rippling through the room. I was frozen. My smile had dropped, my blood ran cold. The sounds of their applause felt like a physical blow, each clap echoing the depths of their deception. This wasn't just a miscommunication. This was a deliberate public theft of my efforts, my achievement, my very identity as the owner of this space. They were parading their entitlement, cementing the lie right in front of me in my own home. My eyes darted to my mother, who merely offered a small, placid smile, as if this was all perfectly acceptable, perfectly normal. And then, from across the table, clear as a bell in the sudden lull that followed Rachel's speech, a clatter. Aunt Layla, bless her unfiltered soul, had dropped her fork onto her plate. The sound cut through the polite applause like a knife. Then her voice, loud and carrying, boomed across the otherwise quiet room. "She's delusional if she thinks she owns this house." Everyone turned. The cheerful murmurs died. Rachel's dazzling smile faltered. Travis, ever the smooth operator, quickly tried to smooth things over with a strained laugh. Aunt Layla, always with the jokes. But Aunt Layla wasn't joking. Her gaze was fixed on Rachel, unwavering. "No joke, young man. This house belongs to Vanessa alone. Every brick, every tile. Built by her own blood and sweat. Anyone saying otherwise is not only incorrect, they're insulting her." The tension in the room became unbearable. You could have heard a pin drop. Rachel's face hardened, turning from surprised hurt to cold fury. My mother, looking mortified, began to stammer something about family harmony, but my own temper, long simmering beneath a veneer of polite composure, finally reached its boiling point. I couldn't stay there. I couldn't endure another second of the charade, the lies, the blatant disrespect. Without a word, I pushed back my chair, scraping it loudly against the floor, and walked out of the room. I could feel all eyes on me, but I didn't care. I needed air. I needed to get away from Rachel's smug face, my mother's complicit silence, and the collective blindness of everyone else in that room. The peace offering had erupted into an inferno. There was no going back now. My mind was made up. The next conversation with Rachel was not going to be a hopeful one. It was going to be an ultimatum. After storming out of the rehearsal dinner, I knew there was no going back to polite suggestions or hints. The time for subtlety was over. My initial instinct to perhaps salvage something amicable was entirely gone, replaced by a firm, unshakable resolve. I needed to have one final private conversation with Rachel. Not a discussion, but a clear, unambiguous statement of facts, an ultimatum. The next morning, the air in the villa was thick with unspoken tension. Rachel, Travis, and my mother were all gathered ostensibly for breakfast, though no one seemed to be eating. Aunt Layla was there too, sipping her coffee with an almost unnerving calm, a faint, knowing smirk playing on her lips. I walked in, my expression set, and addressed Rachel directly. "Rachel, we need to talk. Now, privately." She bristled slightly, but the public embarrassment from Aunt Layla's outburst the night before seemed to have tempered her usual bravado. We went into the living room, a space I had carefully designed for peace and conversation, now charged with animosity. Travis, annoyingly, tried to follow, but I held up a hand. "Just us, Rachel." He hesitated, then retreated, casting a nervous glance at Rachel. I began, keeping my voice steady, despite the tremor of anger beneath the surface. "This villa is not yours. It never was. You are not entitled to this property just because we share parents and blood." I watched her face, waiting for any sign of recognition, any flicker of understanding or remorse. There was none, only a growing petulance. "I this house with my own money, my own time, my own effort. Every single cent that went into this property came from me. You did not contribute financially, physically, or emotionally to its creation. You didn't even visit once during the 2 years it was being built." Rachel's eyes narrowed. The victim act was melting away, revealing the entitlement beneath. "That's not fair, Vanessa. I was busy. You know how demanding my job is, and then wedding planning. Your job is demanding, Rachel, but not so demanding that you couldn't send a simple message asking if you could use my home as your wedding venue," I interrupted, my voice sharper now, "or that you and Mom could simply decide it was yours to claim as a gift without my knowledge or consent. This isn't a misunderstanding. This is a deliberate attempt to take what is mine." And then she flipped. The carefully constructed polite veneer shattered, her face contorted with anger. "You're just jealous, aren't you? That I'm getting married, that I'm moving on, building my own life. You're bitter and resentful that I'm having a beautiful wedding, and you just want to ruin it. You're selfish for not supporting my new life. The accusations, flung with such venom, stung. But they also reinforced everything I had come to understand about her. This wasn't about support. It was about acquisition. This wasn't about a wedding. It was about a possession. Supporting your new life does not mean handing over my life's work. Rachel, I counted, my voice regaining its steady power. And for the record, I am neither jealous nor bitter. What I am is disgusted by your blatant sense of entitlement. You truly believe you're owed this, don't you? Her silence, her defiant stare was her answer. She absolutely did. At that moment, Travis appeared in the doorway, drawn by the raised voices. He looked from Rachel to me, his expression a mix of concern and, bizarrely, agreement with Rachel's unspoken claim. He, too, seemed to believe Rachel was owed this. A part of me, however small, had hoped he might be an ally of reason. That hope died then and there. This was the core of it. Rachel, and apparently Travis, saw this villa as a birthright, a natural extension of being family, something that should automatically transfer to her simply because she shared my last name. My years of labor, my financial independence, my personal sacrifice, none of it mattered. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the final pronouncement. So let me make this absolutely, unequivocally clear, Rachel. The wedding is not happening at my villa. Not now. Not ever. There will be no wedding photos here, no reception here, no honeymoon suite here. This is my property, and you are not welcome to use it for your wedding. You can find another venue. The words hung in the air, cold and definitive. Rachel stared at me, her mouth slightly agape, the full impact of my ultimatum finally sinking in. The game was over. The negotiation was won, and the line, finally, had been irrevocably drawn. Each morning of Rachel's wedding dawned with a deceptive calmness. After my ultimatum to Rachel, the atmosphere had been thick with unspoken recriminations. My mother refused to look me in the eye, and Rachel had retreated into a dramatic silence, only communicating with Travis or Mom. I had spent the day before the wedding barricaded within my villa, mentally preparing for the confrontation I knew was coming. I had my security measures in place, the legal documents ready, and Derek and Aunt Layla were there, providing their unwavering support, a true comfort in the storm. I genuinely hoped that Rachel, after my clear statement, would have made alternate arrangements, that she would have grasped the severity of the situation. I was wrong. Dramatically, spectacularly wrong. The family drama exploded right as the first guests began to arrive. A fleet of black luxury cars started pulling up the long, winding driveway leading to my villa. The music started playing. I could see the caterers, florists, and a wedding planner bustling about, setting up tents and decorations, all without my permission, all assuming they had full access. Rachel, it turned out, had told everyone it was a surprise wedding venue, counting on my supposed guilt, my family loyalty, and frankly, my being a doormat, to let her get away with it. I had anticipated this audacity. Derek had already coordinated with a small, discreet security team I'd hired. As the first wave of guests, mostly Rachel's friends and some distant relatives, attempted to enter the property, they were politely but firmly denied entry. "Excuse me, this is a private residence," one of my security officers stated, blocking the path. "The wedding is not being held here." Confusion erupted. The guests, dressed in their finest, looked bewildered. Then Rachel, in her full wedding gown, emerged from her assigned car, looking like a furious swan. She marched towards the makeshift blockade, her face a mask of disbelief and rage. "What is the meaning of this? Let my guests through. This is my wedding," she shrieked, her voice carrying across the vineyard. I stepped forward, calm and composed, though my heart was pounding. "Rachel, we had this conversation. This is my home. You do not have permission to host your wedding here." Her eyes flashed with pure hatred. "You think you can ruin my day? After everything? This is unforgivable, Vanessa." With a dramatic flourish, she ripped the bouquet from her hand and, with surprising force, hurled it directly at me. It missed, scattering delicate flowers across the gravel. Chaos ensued. Someone had already pulled out their phone, recording. Another was live streaming. The whole scene, raw and unfiltered, was going out to the world. Guests were gasping, whispering. My mother, looking overwhelmed, was trying futilely to intervene, a pained expression on her face. "Rachel, stop," my mother cried, but Rachel was beyond reason. "You're a monster, Vanessa. A selfish, jealous monster. After Mom gave you this house, you'd do this to me?" She screamed, completely fabricating a history that had no basis in reality. It was then I made my final move, the one I had been preparing for. I had the legal documents confirming the property's current status ready. I ensured that it was completely locked down, that there was no loophole, no room for her to claim some perceived family entitlement. It was drastic, irreversible, but necessary. "Actually, Rachel," I said, my voice cutting through the escalating noise, clear and sharp. "The property has been removed entirely from family inheritance. It's now under a trust, my trust." I watched as her face, already contorted with fury, drained of all color. The word inheritance struck a chord with her, undoubtedly. That was her intended future security, the unspoken safety net she clearly thought she had. The revelation of the trust shattered that illusion completely. Travis, who had been trying to pull Rachel away, saw his dreams of a wealthy, entitled future evaporate before his eyes. He stopped. He stared at Rachel, then at me, then at the villa, and then, slowly, a look of profound embarrassment and calculation spread across his face. He simply turned around and walked away from his screaming bride, leaving her standing alone amidst the confused guests and scattered rose petals. From my porch, where she had positioned herself with a comfortable chair and a full flute, Aunt Layla raised her glass. "Cheers, Vanessa," she announced loudly, taking a long, triumphant sip of champagne. It was messy, public, and utterly mortifying for the other side, but I knew, finally, irrevocably, that my home, my dream, was truly safe. The fight had arrived, and I was ready. The wedding was definitively off, at least at my villa. After the wedding day fireworks, the dust slowly began to settle. The immediate aftermath was a whirlwind of public gossip and private recriminations. The live stream of Rachel's meltdown at my gates had indeed gone viral, painting her as something of a spoiled bridezilla. Travis, as expected, quietly slipped away. Their wedding, as far as I know, eventually happened elsewhere, a much more subdued affair than Rachel had envisioned. In the weeks that followed, the silence from my mother and Rachel was deafening. My mother, once the self-appointed peacekeeper, now seemed unable to even acknowledge my existence. Rachel made it abundantly clear through intermediaries that she considered me personally responsible for ruining her dream day and her life by exposing her and by her own actions. The estrangement was complete. There were no phone calls, no visits, no attempts at reconciliation from their side. And surprisingly, in that quiet, I found a strange kind of peace. It was a trade-off, certainly. I lost my immediate family, my mother and sister. The ties were severed, perhaps irrevocably. It hurt, more than I probably care to admit. There's a deep-seated ache that comes with severing family bonds, even when they're toxic. The generational guilt, the ingrained feeling that I should have done more, given more, absorbed more, lingered for a while like a ghost. But what I gained, I realized, was far more profound. Freedom. Freedom from the endless cycle of expectations, from the subtle manipulation, from the constant pressure to sacrifice my well-being and my achievements for the sake of perceived peace. I was no longer beholden to the guilt that had dictated so much of my life. The villa, no longer a battleground for family drama, stood as a testament to my resilience, not my obligation. It truly was mine, in every sense of the word. Derek, as always, was my rock. He helped me navigate the quiet period, reminding me of my worth and the incredible strength it took to stand up for myself. Aunt Layla, too, became a constant, welcome presence, her eccentric wisdom a balm to my soul. She saw the situation for what it was, and her unwavering support was invaluable. As I began to heal and embrace this new chapter, I started thinking about the villa's purpose. It was too beautiful, too full of positive energy from its creation, to be just a private residence for one person. I wanted it to be a space of empowerment, a place where others could find their strength, just as I had found mine in defending it. So I reinvented its purpose. The villa now hosts empowerment retreats for women in business. It's a beautiful irony, isn't it? A place almost stolen by entitlement now serves as a beacon for women to build their own empires, to find their voices, and to learn how to protect their boundaries. We hold workshops on financial independence, self-worth, leadership, and emotional resilience. The spaces that were once nearly claimed are now filled with the laughter and collaborative energy of strong, aspiring women. I find immense fulfillment in this new role. Each retreat confirms that standing up for myself was not selfish, but necessary. Necessary not just for me, but as an example. Derek and I toasted our success recently, looking out over the sunset-kissed vineyards from the very patio where Rachel made her first entitled comments. He simply said, "You built something incredible, Ness. Something real," and he was right. The villa, for me, is no longer just a house. It's a metaphor. A physical representation of a boundary successfully defended, of a dream reclaimed, and of a life redirected towards a purpose larger than my own personal comfort. It transformed from a haven to a beacon of strength, not just for me, but for the amazing women who now pass through its doors. It's a reminder that sometimes losing what you thought was family can lead you to find your true purpose, and a community that truly supports while looking back on everything that happened, from the quiet years of building to the explosive confrontation on what was supposed to be wedding day. I've learned some monumental lessons. The biggest one? Family will try to guilt you. Society will subtly or not so subtly ask you to sacrifice your peace, your achievements, your very self for the comfort or benefit of others. But sometimes protecting what's truly yours, your boundaries, your hard-won peace, your earned success, means becoming the villain in their story. For so long, I had played the role of the benevolent, responsible older sister, the dutiful daughter. I allowed the narrative to be shaped by others' expectations and desires. But the moment I refused to be a doormat, the moment I drew a firm line in the sand and declared, "This is mine, and you are not entitled to it," I became the bad guy in my mother and sister's eyes. And honestly, I'm okay with that now, because in becoming the villain in their story, I became the hero of mine. I reclaimed my autonomy, my sense of self-worth, and my right to define my own life and my own achievements. The villa, which was once almost a symbol of my endless capacity to give, now stands as a monument to my strength in protecting what I built. It's no longer about obligation. It's about inspiration. It's been a wild roller coaster, a journey far more dramatic than I ever anticipated. There are still challenging moments, of course. Untangling years of family dynamics doesn't happen overnight, and the estrangement has its own unique ache. But the profound sense of freedom, the genuine peace I now feel within these walls, outweighs any of that sadness. I'm no longer walking on eggshells, constantly anticipating the next ask, the next expectation. Instead, I'm building something new, not just within the villa's walls through the retreats, but within myself. I'm building a life that is truly aligned with my values, my hard work, and my self-respect. And what I've realized is that this kind of peace, this level of authentic connection with yourself, is priceless. It cannot be bought, it cannot be given away, and it certainly shouldn't be sacrificed for anyone else's comfort or convenience. So I'm curious to hear from you all. Out there right now, are you facing a situation where someone is trying to claim what's yours? Have you ever had to stand up for something that everyone else assumed was theirs to take, something you poured your heart and soul into? Maybe it's not a villa. Maybe it's your time, your energy, your career path, or even your identity. How did you handle it? Did you manage to protect your peace? Or are you still struggling with those ingrained guilt messages? Let me know in the comments below. Your experiences are valid, and sharing them helps all of us realize we're not alone in these struggles. It takes courage to protect what's yours, especially when it goes against deeply ingrained family or societal norms. And if you've connected with my story, if this wild emotional roller coaster resonated with you, please do me a huge favor. Don't forget to hit that button. Seriously, it helps more than you know. And definitely subscribe to my channel. I'll be sharing more stories, more insights, and maybe, just maybe, your story might be next. Until then, remember to protect your peace, no matter what it takes.